Okay, wow. Tēnei koutou katoa. Welcome, everyone, to the second Fresh Shorts webinar. I'm Jackie Dennis from Script to Screen, and I'm here with Miriam Smith, who's the Fresh Shorts facilitator working with Script to Screen, and Jude McLaren, who works in the talent pathways, talent development at the New Zealand Film Commission. So today what we thought we'd do is go through showing how to register on the portal, the Fresh Shorts portal, and then we'll just have a roam around the portal so you can, we'll talk through every aspect of it and spend some time especially around the directors, treatment and the images that are required. There's a question section and you can post questions at any time and we will get to them before the end of the webinar. And we've already received some questions, so we'll answer those at the same time as well. And if a question comes up that's relevant to what we're talking about, I'll try and answer it immediately, because that way you can, yeah, it's just a good idea. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is open up the Q&A section so I can see questions coming in. There we go. And let's just go straight start right away with the registration of on the Fresh Shorts portal. We've got Megan in the background managing all of the images that we're going to look at, so she'll put that up on the screen in a moment, and when she does, we'll talk it through. Here it is. Yeah, so welcome to the Script to Screen's online application portal. So you have to register here before you can start applying for anything. And sometimes your registration isn't immediate. So that's why Miriam and Jude often say you really need to do it now, because if you leave it to the day that you need to enter your application and you strike problems, you'll miss the time, the closing time. So here Megan's typed in filmmaker's name, and you put in your email address and you choose a password and you let us know whether you're a New Zealand citizen, a permanent resident or a New Zealand registered business to apply for funding, and then you go create my account. I confirm I've read and understood the privacy policy, so of course you've clicked on it, you've read it, it's taken you a couple of hours, you're really happy with it, and then you click. And there it is.
Jackie, I can't stress enough, as you said, about registering early. We just had a fund close earlier this week, and we had people calling on the Monday morning going, "Oh, I can't get into the portal," and it's just like, you know, this is the deadline's in like 4 hours or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please do register.
Yeah, do register. And as you see, registering is super easy. And then what you can do is just start the application, but you can save it any time. You can even put no data in until you're ready. So that's how super easy it is, and it's really worth doing. Here we are at Kōpere Hou Fresh Shorts Stage 1, and it does close at 1 p.m. on Monday,
the 19th of October. So that's not that's coming Monday, but it's the one after.
Yeah,
so a fortnight. Yeah,
yes.
It's just a little bit over 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, 10 days.
No,
is it 10 days? Oh, my math.
Yes, 10 days. I was just my out. Yes.
Get your calendar out.
Yeah.
So you click new application. Actually, there's a pointer there to stage 1 application pointers, and here they are when you go in as well. When you click new application, I just noticed that they're inside the portal.
Yeah. And these are great documents. I refer to them all the time.
Yeah,
I do too.
So all of the guidelines and all of the pointers are all throughout the application. So there's a hover over aspect of things too, just to help you if you've forgotten what am I meant to put here. You can actually hover over areas or go back to the guidelines. Everything's there for you, so you don't have to, you know, you can just do it all within the portal.
Jude, could you just quickly talk to the talent eligibility criteria? Just like if someone's applied 3 times with one project, that's no longer eligible. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So you can apply up to 3 times with the same project, and if you've applied previously, even if it's not 3 times in a row, you might have applied say several years ago, and this is or twice, and then this is the 3rd time. So what we'd be wanting to understand is if you've further developed the work, and how, and just, it doesn't have to be a big, well, you haven't got room for a big essay, but it's a sentence just indicating, we've worked on character in the script. It might be something like that. We've got new team members, and it's just a couple of sentences like that. Probably in the producer's statement is where I'd suggest you put that information. In terms of eligibility, so the talent development team have an eligibility criteria sheet, and really Fresh Shorts is a very open process. So there's a couple of things, as Jackie indicated, registering for the portal. It's about being a New Zealand citizen or resident. And our only other sort of proviso is that if you've been a director of a feature film, a drama feature film, then you're not eligible for this particular fund. However, your producer might be a very experienced producer, and that's fine. That applies to the director, and also your writer may have written a feature film and has early development funding through the Commission. That's still fine if they're applying for Fresh Shorts. It's really, that criteria is really around the director. They cannot have made a feature film funded by the New Zealand Film Commission. If it was an independent film, that's fine. But a feature funded by the NZFC and it's a drama or a comedy, that person wouldn't be eligible. So yeah, we have accepted people who are directors who have made a feature documentary funded by the Commission, and they made a case, and they were transferring into the drama narrative, and so we agreed that was a progressive goal, and so we let them apply. But that was the exemption, really. And anything, have I missed anything?
And the only other thing this year, we did go on the last webinar talk about this, but about eligibility is that because of COVID, applicants do need to be living in New Zealand at the time of applying. So that is another.
And we're in the fortunate position at the moment that the country is in level 1, but as we all have experienced, those things can change. We certainly will be making sure we've got a plan B for funded teams when they go to workshops, to do it, and not in person if required, but that's just our request at the moment. And it's got to do with a few things to do with the government. We can't be funding people to travel internationally, and there's a 3-week quarantine, and it's very expensive. So we didn't really want to put that burden on people as well. So that was our reasoning around that. And if anybody has any other questions, they can please get in contact with me, Jude at nzfilm, Jude at nzfilm.co.nz. You'd think I'd know it by now. Never mind.
Or indeed Fresh Short.
Or my email too. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you mentioned eligibility too. It's just if you have outstanding funding as well that you have.
Oh, reports, yeah. And those don't freak out if you have made a film. You might have been making another Fresh Short, or one of your team members have, and there's a milestone or something like that. Just say, yes, I do have an outstanding report. Tell us what it is, and then we'll get in contact with you. And it's not a biggie. We just need to know. So don't freak out about it.
So that's the first page there. It talks a lot about eligibility. It's got a whole lot of information there and some yes/no answers that you need to deal with. So let's go on to the next page, which is your proposal. Okay, so Miriam, why don't you start talking through this one?
So do we start with the team video? So this this has got with your key creative team, so your writer, director and producer. Obviously your writer, director can be the same person, and really this is just an opportunity for you guys to the assessors will want to be watching this to have a sense of who you are as people, why you are working together, and how you connect to the project. So it's not about flashy production values or like a pitch to camera. It's really about the people watching this film having a really understanding that connection between you and the project and seeing your enthusiasm for it. And so there's no, I understand that for some people these things can be very scary and daunting, but very, very, assessors are very happy just to see you being your natural selves, and it does not have to be perfect. We're all human. And a question I have been getting a little bit is people asking about the duration, wanting it to be basically the maximum is 4 minutes. 4 minutes is the longest it can be. So I've had some people asking if it can be longer, and the reason it can't be longer is it does need to be fair across the board. We can't let some, so it just makes it, the reason all these guidelines is just to make sure that there's sort of a uniform approach, so someone's not putting in a half-an-hour video, And we do ask, that it is sort of just a, where possible, one continuous link. So something like you can film a Zoom video, a meeting or something like that. It doesn't need to be flashy production values or anything like that. Yeah.
No, it's about the people. It's not about, your story will actually speak to us in terms of the script that you're putting in, and it's really about your connection to that story. That's what we all want to understand. We want to know a little bit about how you're going to work together, that's kind of it. So it's sort of, in my mind, I imagine giving yourself a couple of minutes to talk about the story, why the story, your connection to it, what's the heart of the story, and again, like reiterating, re-stressing that it is not a pitch. It's not pitching your log line. You don't have to pitch it to us. We've read the story. We want to know you and why you want to tell the story. And then at the end, the second half is just introducing your team and how you intend to work together. Like some of you might have done quite a bit of work together. Some of you might be a new team. So those are two quite different propositions, and we just want to know how you're going to do what you're going to do, basically. Yeah. Can I just go back just up to the top, Megan, a little bit? And that is the criteria. There's lots and lots of people. So those two first things, the first lot of bullet points and then the second lot of bullet points, everybody asks us, what are you looking for? How do you assess this application? So what we're looking for is in the first part, and it truly is what we're looking for, distinctive original style. So that's why that director's kind of summary is really important. Great stories, and a team that can actually, make the work. So that is sitting in those bullet points. And then the assessment literally is using those other bullet points below: quality, idea, point of difference, the voice, and the talent and the ability to deliver. So if that is literally what we use. So it's not meant to be any mystery. It's not meant to be hidden. That's it. Has anybody else got anything to add to that?
No, that's absolutely.
No.
Yeah, that's the people who are doing the selection process. So they haven't got any other information other than that. So that's what they're looking for. It's just really quite straightforward.
Yeah. And even at the start of panel meetings and their selection meetings, these are sort of read out at the start, so everyone's sort of reminded and focused on the same sort of goals of what the Free Shorts Fund is looking for. So this is really your guide.
And when those hard decisions are being made too about inviting teams to go to stage 2 or the funding, this is what we come back to, because it's sort of our guiding light as well, because they are really challenging decisions. And the thing is that we're often really overwhelmed with talent and quality and amazing stories. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful, horrible situation to be in. But anyway, that is what helps us make some decisions.
Yeah, but we are in this wonderful country that does fund short films, so we'd be happy about that. Okay, so the story, you enter your title, can't go wrong with that. You tell us what sort of film type it is. So your selection here is animation, documentary, live action, stop motion, and other. And if you choose other, you then get the opportunity to specify the film type that you've got. Then you move on to genre, and again, you have to select from an option. Action, adventure, animation. I'm not going to read them all out. There's so many. If you scroll down, there's quite a few. So you choose
I think there's about 30 or something, isn't there? It's about 25 or 30.
Western and other. And again, if you choose other, you can then type in what genre you think is missing. That's interesting.
And
did it come?
Good.
I think so, yeah. You can, I think, just type it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you type in where it says other, you just type in
the genre.
Film noir.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to title and then come to back to genre. But titles, sometimes you get really long titles. And what I would really encourage you to do is think about if you were in the Show Me Shorts booklet, would it fit sort of on one little section? You know, because if you look at a booklet, you'll see that there isn't a super long, there's not a lot of room. You kind of got to grab people. So succinct titles are quite useful, but it's really up to you. But I'm just saying that that's what I found to be useful, but it's your film. And then with genre, just a loving reminder, put your most dominant genre first, and then the second genre. And I know that lots of people will feel that they've kind of got, you might feel that you've got sort of 3 genres, but actually we just want to keep it simple for us. Genre really helps guide the reader because there are elements of genre that we are familiar with, and so it helps us sort of focus on what kind of story we think we're entering into or what kind of world. And that's a really valuable thing because you want the reader to enter your world as quickly as possible and engage with your characters as quickly as possible. So those are really important things, even though it's just like a word, it means quite a lot. Does anybody else want to add to that? No? Okay.
That sounds great to me.
Logline is one that you can spend weeks on if you've got the time. But yeah, 35 words or less, you describe your film. There are formulas. You can Google it and you will find quite useful formulas. I mean, normally you would think if I say a formula, you'd like, that would be terrible. But in actual fact, if you Google how to write a log line, it will give you like 3 steps that you cover in your log line. And all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, I get it. And you've got a log line that makes sense. So if you haven't written one before, I'd certainly do some research.
Yeah, and there's some examples of those formulas in the pointers document. And often these can just help you as a way in, and then you can sort of make it read, you know, more beautifully how you want to read it. But it just helps you kind of hone in on those sort of central through line of the idea that can really swiftly communicate to the reader that you know what's at the heart of the story and what's sort of driving the narrative. Yeah, so I think those formulas are really helpful.
Yeah, they are really helpful, and they're actually generated in the last development lab by Karen Williams, and you'll see that in that pointers document there's a couple of really cracker New Zealand films, then those are their actual log lines, and they meet that sort of formula or that format. Just, you know, Jackie talked about how much time it might take, but also thinking like when you are developing your script, sometimes things change and sometimes you forget to change your log line. And so I really encourage you to think that they need to mirror each other, and that you can see when that hasn't happened. As a reader, you go, oh, okay, that's not quite the story I read. So just a gentle reminder about that, to make sure that when you've gone through the further developing your script in the next wee while, make sure your log line and your script are in sync. And if, Megan, can you just hover over the little question mark next to log line? So you'll see wherever you see that wee question mark, I always wanted the icon to be bigger because I think you need a microscope to see that it's a question mark. However, there's those bits and pieces in there are the pointers. That's the pointers document, and those are the formulas or the formats that Miriam was talking about.
Well, in actual fact, they don't need to Google it at all, do they?
Yeah.
There it is.
No, they don't, but they can because you're right.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. Yeah.
And I've often found too that
There's
sometimes when you refine a logline, it can actually help you when you're looking back at your script to go, oh, well, if that's a central idea of the story, then is that being followed through in the long form? And sometimes it's interesting how much it can help you with the development of a project. That everything's sort of on the
really
one set of train tracks rather than too many ideas in the mix or whatever.
Yeah. And it can be a touch point going back. And I know people say this and they kind of go, and I guess that some people think, oh yeah, well, that's a nice theory, but actually it's really practical. When you are in the thick of it and trying to make a film and everybody isn't quite sure, you've lost your way. It's something to come back to, a touchstone where everybody goes, oh, what's the film we're making? Let's have a look at that log line. And that can be really helpful. Yeah.
And it helps the whole team sort of be really clear, I think. Yeah. On what
So no doubt you have a script and there's a certain format that it
Fingers crossed.
and the format is quite important. Miriam, do you want to talk to that?
Yes, so the script is, in a sense, I mean, the whole application is hugely important, all of it as a whole, but the script is, in a way, the most essential ingredient, and also in terms of this, from the assessor's point of view, it's what's in when they're going through and assessing each component of what you're putting into the portal, this is worth the most points as such. So this is crucial. I mean, you just need to get a story that's hooks the reader and allows them to really see clearly and enter into the story that you're wanting to tell. Yeah, so and I think sometimes it's about just ensuring that what you're seeing in your mind is very much on the page, is what we were talking about before. Is sometimes there can be a gap where you think it's there. So sometimes have other people read it, that will be your producer or the rest of your team, and feeding back. This being clear that it says you're presenting your script and your story as strongly as you can at this point in the process.
Yeah, so even though I'm not a spelling and grammar expert or fanatic myself, it is really important that you get somebody who is good at those things to review your script and your work. Jackie is an expert, and I always trust that when she reads something that I've written, that because she's really good at that, she notices those details that I just doesn't matter how much I look at it, I will not see. So that's invaluable to me. And also one other thing I would just want to say too is time and place at the top of your script. Again, helping the reader orient themselves in your story. Where is it set? When is it set? Those two, and with the genre, really help readers settle into your story and really enjoy your characters. Otherwise, they're searching constantly to go, where is this set? Is this 1970s? Is this 1990s? Is it 2020? Where am I? Because the expectations that you have of characters going through something at different times and in different places actually creates a whole lot of different meaning for readers. So I just really encourage you to think about ensuring that that's there to help the reader enjoy your story.
Can I also just add, sorry, just while we think of it, that assessors will be reading your application in order of what exactly how you're putting it in the portal is exactly how they're reading it. So if you imagine they're coming in and they'll see the title, the genre, the log line. So they have that information in their brain when they come to the script. And actually that's why having the genre and the log line is great, because it kind of sets the scene of what they're sort of entering into. Yeah, and that goes through the whole application too. So that's, I think, helpful to know, hopefully, that the order.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Miriam. Yeah.
So I think
and so, yeah, because we're also trying to compare, we do the same way for each application so that we have the same experience. Yeah.
And so therefore,
Were you
when we
gonna say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I was moving on to the next section, if that's okay, only if you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tangata whenua, diversity, representation and consultation summary. I think this is a new aspect to applications that the New Zealand Film Commission instigate. So do you want to talk that one through, Jude?
Yeah, sure. And we sort of were having a conversation about it before we came online, and it really stems from your story. So the content of your story, if you have Māori characters, or if you've got New Zealand or Māori history in there, it's about making sure that you have authentic characters, that it's accurate in terms of, particularly if you're covering something that has a historical content, that you have either entered into or intend to enter into authentic and consistent consultation. And I think it's really important too that there's no one view, so it's making sure that you've got a breadth of consultation as well. And that goes for any community that might be represented in your story, is making sure that you're engaging authentically with that community, but also that they're represented in a complex and full way, and that they're not sort of caricatures or stereotypes. And that comes back to, it's also about your voice. So it's the voice of your script that influences where you might need to get support to make sure that your script is fully informed and kind of has an accuracy and an authenticity. Again, this is about the benefit of the audience and the reader. Like, that's what audiences genuinely engage with, is authentic representation of characters. Nothing makes people, like, particularly if they come from that community, nothing annoys people more or takes them out of the story if they think, oh, that's just a stereotype. You know, that doesn't work for me. And look, again, we have a breadth of readers that are reading across this work, and so it's not just one reader from a community. We're trying a minimum of 2, and so if your story is from a particular ethnic community, we do our best to make sure there are readers to inform our decision making as well. So it's very considered, it's very well thought through, and we're just encouraging you to do that as well, because we think that's good practice, but also we want to support a representation, diversity and inclusion, and so that's why it is a new aspect.
Thanks.
Is there anything you feel like I might have missed?
Yeah, Miriam, is there anything you want to add to that?
I think the only thing I think that was beautifully put, Jude, and I think the other aspect to it, obviously it's primarily about what's within the story, which was we're looking for with this document, but you may also choose to speak to who's the people behind, as in on the other side of the camera, the team making it or the crew making it. So that might also be something that you speak to. I mean, there's only 300 words, I think, that you're not, but if you are also taking that into consideration, might be something you choose to include.
Beautiful.
Diversity behind the screen.
Yeah. And if you haven't, as I said, if you haven't, behind the camera, if you haven't yet undertaken that, but you recognise, and particularly maybe after tonight, you go, maybe I need to put a bit of work into that summary. You know, it's plans and intentions, and just speak to that aspect of it. We also talked about not just putting NA, like not applicable. Even if you think that isn't applicable to your application, I would encourage you to help us understand why. I mean, it's not to say that it's not about just doing it because you think that that's what we want. That's why I'm trying to stress it comes from your story. So if your story isn't about specific ethnicities or from a woman's point of view, or it's not about, it doesn't have gender diverse characters, or, you know, things like that, then talk to us about, but as Miriam said, it might have people behind the camera that you are working with. I mean, we just want to understand a bit more about that. but please don't put just NA, because that will make us think, you know, that'll be a question in our mind, like, you know, we would have appreciated a little bit more information. That's the question. Yeah.
Thanks, that's great.
Cool.
Megan, can you bring the portal up again? I think we might have, what I'd like to do now is move on to team, and we've actually got a few questions around team, so I might address the questions
Good
before
idea.
we go through the portal sections here.
Great.
I see director's vision is next, and you know we are going to talk to that for quite a bit. So before we get lost and lose time, I've got a question here. For first-time writer-directors, how would you assess on the ability to deliver the project if they haven't done a short film before? Yeah.
Go, Miriam.
Well, I guess there's a few aspects to this. You'll be working with producer, so depending on their track record and abilities and vision for how to bring this story to life, that would be part of how you can assure the reader that you can deliver on the film. And also I would speak to your own particular experience. You know, you might have come from, if you haven't made a film before, you may have come from a theatre background or some other performing arts, or something that's somehow really relevant to this particular story that you feel will really help bring it to life in its most authentic cinematic way. So I think you can speak to that. So I guess it's just showing the reader in the application, showing them all that you can bring to it that can help the readers get confidence that you can bring to life what you aim to.
Another possibility is that you might have a friend who's a filmmaker who could mentor you.
True.
If you're a writer-director, and you may have a friend who's a writer and another friend who's a director, and they might be able to be there as mentors. If you're a producer and you're pretty green, but you can access an EP, an executive producer, who can just oversee what you're doing and ensure that you're on the right path and have someone at the other end of a phone call, because you know, that's quite powerful. That's really taken into consideration. If we can see that you yourself realize that you're going to need someone at the other end of the phone to just go, look, I'm concerned about this, or I'm struggling with that, and you've got someone that you can check in with. So that would be another great way of giving the readers confidence that you would be able to make your film. Okay.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, so I'll just move on to a couple of other questions before we move on. I've already said that, I'm repeating myself. On the application portal, under the team section, do we have to submit a separate director's bio and a writer's bio, even if one person is the writer-director? Jude?
And the answer is yes. And I wouldn't have said that, but I consulted our man in the field, Simon Brash, who's our digital advisor at the NZFC, and sort of does, he helps us create the applications. And he said, yes, just because it's the nature of the portal, it's not to do with the people. If you just copy and paste, if you're the writer and the director, just copy and paste your bio into each section. It's about needing to have all the fields, and those where you see the cursor hovering at the moment, that's what we call a field, and they need to be filled, and it helps us to understand that the application is complete. So yes, please do copy and paste you know, your bio, if you are both the writer and director, into each section.
Great.
So I think that answers that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Along the same lines, can we have a writer-director and a director, so co-directors?
Right, so one person's written the script and two people, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think one of the challenges around that, and I'll just bring this up, is you're absolutely welcome to. And we have funded co-directors. There are different reasons why people co-direct. Sometimes we have a director who actually does need support, just to kind of get into the project, and they might have a fantastic vision, but they maybe come from a theatre background, and then they're new to screen. And that can be a time when it can be beneficial for them to have it's sort of like a directing buddy or partnership. So yes, that is certainly not frowned upon. What I would say is that short film is about voice, and it is about director's voice. And for us, in terms of the Film Commission and progression, we're looking at the progression of directors. So if you intend to be a director, it's really useful if you are if there's a clarity about your voice. And that, by clarity, I mean, if you're one person, we know that what you're bringing to that. If you're a partnership, two directors, and there's lots of really famous partnerships around the world of directors, and you intend to kind of journey on together, then that is great. By all means, apply as a dual directorship. But I'll just put that forward for your thinking about voice. Yeah.
So another question, just going back to Tangata Whenua representation summary, does that include women as one of the diverse representative groups you might want to talk about including? Which is yes.
Well, as we know, women are not diverse, 51% of the population. However, they're underrepresented. In terms of authentic characters, they often get stereotyped, particularly in the way they're described in a script. However, we'd encourage you, but you know, there's like female directors are underrepresented, female DOPs underrepresented. You know, a lot of the crew and craft areas, and technical sometimes they are. So we'd encourage, if you've got, you know, sometimes teams have all female crew. That's a cool thing. We'd want to know that. I mean, cool as in that's great that people are supporting women. And then, but authenticity about, you know, particularly sometimes stories are from a female point of view, and that's a distinction that is, it's a subtle distinction, and it's good to talk to that, and that is about representation. Lots of times women are not authentically represented, they get stereotyped. So that's, I don't know if that answers the question, or if there's anyone else, anything else someone would like to add.
The obviously they don't have to say a female writer or a female director or a female producer, because that will be seen, you know, by the selectors just in the reading anyway. And in the selection process, alternately 3 female directors will be chosen alongside 3 male directors, because that's part of the Film Commission selection process, and anything really that's funded through the Film Commission is 50-50 on that front. So as you said, Jude, it's just about
and talent development.
It's about, yeah, but it just, if you were going to include it, it's not because you've got a female director, it's because you've got some story as to why you're including it.
Yeah, you might have a female lead character, or you know, it's from and it's, the story is clearly from that point of view. But you know, that's a distinction in terms of diversity. Like, women are not diverse in of themselves, but sometimes it's about representation. So that's where the representation aspect comes into it, just to make that distinction.
Lovely,
Yeah.
thank you. Now, we've got a few questions around directors. So what I'd like to do now is move on to the whole director section. So you put in the key information, which is name and bio, and then the director filmography was next, I believe. Scroll, yeah, it's just seemed to flip back. Megan, if you can bring that back, that'd be great. Lovely, perfect, there it is.
Can I just make a quick point? Something that happened while we were talking was, and Megan quickly flipped it away, which was awesome, because otherwise we have to enter the portal again. But just actually to let everybody know that if your page is idle for 15 minutes, it's a very annoying thing. I'll talk to Simon about it, but I'm not sure we can get it changed. But it basically, you have to re-enter the password to get back onto the page. Everything's saved, but just to let you know that happens every 15 minutes. That happens. If you've say been you've written something, then you go and you're reading something else, you're 20 minutes away, it'll say you need to re-enter your password. So just FYI, that will happen.
I'm
it's a wee
noticing
bit annoying, though, people. It's not a perfect rule.
I'm noticing that we've got a little bit of a delay, some tinny sounds, some feedback. We're just coming to you from Auckland, the Coromandel and Wellington, and it's just technology. So that's just one of those little niggly annoying things as well. Okay, back to directors. So this is quite interesting. So you've got a spot there where you can put your director's filmography in, and someone has asked, can they include their showreel link in that summary?
No, we're not asking for show reels. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could. I'm not sure. There's no request to the readers to watch show reels. We're really going on team and story, really, and in terms of director's vision, those 5 images, which we're going to talk about in depth. I mean, I don't know. That's, you know, if you put it in there, no one's gonna, there's no penalty if you put it in there, put it that way. But there's at this stage of the application, because we're trying to to streamline the reader process as well, we haven't requested that. Does anyone else want to talk to that as well?
I feel that you probably shouldn't. It's quite a big process reading a lot of applications, and we've got quite conscientious readers, and they'll feel obliged to trawl through and become familiar with everything you give them, and we haven't asked for that, and they don't need to look at it. So I would say it's probably better not to include a link, but there's no hard and fast rule around this.
No, and it might sound counterintuitive, but we're, as I said, we're going to talk to the 5 images, but actually there's a lot that can be said in 5 simple images. And at the moment, you know, we will be inviting people to come in from these same applications. So we're also wanting to have a sort of a fairness and equity as well, in that sense of like looking at the same kind of application from everybody.
You can see here that you can put your filmography in, so they'll be able to read about what you've done. So that's the next section, is director filmography, and then after that, your demographics, if you're the director. I'm going to sneeze.
Oh, bless you.
Okay, gender, ethnicity, screen experience.
Sneeze.
Screen experience is an interesting one. 2 years, 2.5 years, 6 years. If someone's been doing 20+ years screen experience, are they still relevant for fresh shorts, Jude? When would they be and when wouldn't they be?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's, we're not into ageism either. So, you know, sometimes people have been doing crew or craft roles in different departments, and they're really, I mean, I just think of Robin Grace, who actually won the NZIFF Best Filmmaker. She's a really experienced first AD, and who's finally got the opportunity to make her own films. So I don't think that people should be penalised because they've been busy trying to do other things, you know. People have a depth of experience, so it's both new voices in all senses of the word or term. So yeah, that's a good question, Jackie, but there's no judgment from us about that.
Perfect.
Just to let you know.
And so we've already talked about age, no ageism, region, and then where does the section for the 5 images, where is that bit, Megan?
I think it's back up in the directors.
There it is, okay. So, director's visual inspiration.
Let's director's summary. And then
yeah, we've had a few questions.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd just spend a bit of time. So what we've done is we've mocked up 5 images. No, we haven't really, but we have mocked up 5 pages to give you an indication of what we're asking for. Because I won't go through what some of the questions were, but we just thought this mock-up would help. Why don't you talk it through, Miriam?
Yeah, so this mock-up that we're going to show you, we can step through it. It reflects effectively just the requirements for the application. So we're asking for a single PDF, but with 5 pages, and on each page, 1 image this way, as you can see in the picture, horizontal. And it's really about showing us your vision for the film, moving through the beginning of the film through to the middle section through to the end. And this isn't like necessarily a literal thing. It's about creating a sense of the feeling, your vision for the film, the tone of the film. And so it's really about you to really think about how you want to express that, and really the world is your oyster. You're welcome to create those images yourself, or they can be found images, because they don't need to be copyright free. The only people seeing these images are the assessors, so they're not like going out into the world. So if you do choose, there's some image from some art photography or some film that you love that is very relevant and really speaks to what you're doing, you are welcome to incorporate those images into what you're showing. So yeah, it's really about showing your vision for the film. How does this express your voice? How is this cinematic? Why is this, really, how does this bring when we've read the script, the assessors have read the script, how does this help bring it all to life?
Jude,
and it can be in the...
Jude, do you want to talk through the process of going from image 1 through to image 5?
Great, yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you think about it, again, it comes from, it is coming from your story. So a lot of the time, and lots of directors, like really seasoned directors, they think about what's their first image, and it's something that they hold on to when they're making the film. They know what their opening image is going to be and how it's going to grab the audience. It's in that image, and so that can be a really useful way of you thinking about this, like what is the opening frame of your film, and how does that tell the viewer, how does it give them the Miriam talked about, it's sort of like the look and feel, and there's some information here about, does it help a sense of claustrophobia, is it a sense of nostalgia, how are you showing the light, what is the emotional impact of that image? Is it I use the word arresting. And I just mean by, it's got nothing to do with the police and blowing on pies. It's much more about how are you going to draw the reader or the assessor into be interested in that image. It's something that definitely has to do with light and framing and colour. And the intensity of the image, the people, are people in it, is it a landscape, that kind of stuff. And then it moves through your story. And again, I think sometimes it's good to start with, sorry, I'm going to jump around, sorry, Megan, but you think about the first and the last image of your film, because there's a thing in psychology called primacy and recency, and it's really about you remember the first thing and the last thing. And subsequently also, it's like there's 3 points: first, last, and kind of like the climax of the film, the most dramatic part of the film. So what are you going to leave the person that's reading this with? What sense are they going to end with when they're looking at these images? And also you're thinking again in beginning, middle, end of a story, what is the progression? Tonally, it might change. It might change from being quite dark at the start, like the colour, the shadow, or the the lighting, what people are dressed in, and then at the end, it's a different looking image where we get a sense. We're visual people in general. You all are, we are as readers as well, and we pick up the symbology of imagery as well. So a still image, even though you think it's not a lot of information, actually you're giving us a lot of information in the imagery that you choose in these 5 images. But those other 3 images that are sitting in the heart of your story, they help that journey. So that's the middle section of your story, and how do you get from where you start to where you finish. And so again though, is thinking about tone and colour, and take us on a journey with the images that you're choosing. I'll be kind to Megan and just go, so we just quietly go through 1 to 5 so that you're not making everybody sort of like seasick with jumping around. So what does it say? Consider the image. It shows the tone of the film through colour, light, how the framing affects the feel of the film, e.g. claustrophobic, wide open, or it could be cluttered, how the emotional tone of the film will be captured. Is the theme reflected? I think that's a really good question. Is the theme, like, what are your themes? Go back to your thematics, go back to your character. Sorry.
There's a typo in there.
Image 2.
Oops, excuse the typo. Just through this.
Oh, was there? I see, I didn't even notice that. Yeah. So then this is part of the, the middle part of your film. How does the story progress through changes to the mood, the atmosphere, the tone? Choose images that connect with each other in a cohesive way. Because you're thinking about the whole story and, as I say, the journey. Anyone want to add anything to that?
Well, actually, I've got a question that's relevant to this. Do the images selected need to be explained, or is it helpful to explain them? For example, if a photo is chosen because of the lighting or composition, does this need a little explanation at the bottom to relate it back to the director's vision?
What do you think, Maria?
I mean, I would say probably, I would say,
I know what I think.
I would say no. Like, I think it's just a visual document, and I think you do have your 300 words for your director's vision summary. So I think you can speak to what your vision is, and that's where you use your words. But I think this is very much about just giving a powerful kind of visual representation of your film, because so I would say just stick to the images.
Perfect.
And also, we have been
I totally agree.
Yeah. And just so you know, we have been asked sometimes about, do you need to, if you say have used an image that you don't own the copyright, do you need to credit where it came from? You don't need to, just as we said, because it's not going to be seen out in the world. It's very much in a private, assessor zone.
What I would encourage you to do is remember, it's also like for like. You've got a $15,000 budget as a fund. You may find some other funding, but you're probably not going to be sitting above the $30,000 range, I would say. If you might, but unlikely. So it's important that you're not choosing an image of a $200 million film to be your imagery. It's thinking about, there's lots of places you can go to find imagery. It might be, look at art photographers. It could be, but it may be frame grabs from some of your films that you're inspired by. But do think about the tone and the sensibility of those films. Are they tonally and thematically similar to your films? And that would be really important, and in the colour palette and things like that. Be thinking about that. So I mean, I agree with when you watch a film, you don't see. Unless it's a specific kind of film, you don't tend to have people try and explain the imagery to you. You show people an image and they respond to it, and that's really what we're wanting, is to respond. And we think, when we see these images, we think about the story again. We reimagine the story from the director's point of view, and that's why it's really about how the director imagines the telling of their story.
Yeah,
that's why it's important, if you take other films, that the theme or the tone of the film matches what you're trying to portray to the reader. And it could be, if your film's about justice, at the beginning you may have imagery that shows injustice, but your final imagery will show justice in some way, and the three in the middle will be some depiction of how you got there. So it doesn't all need to be through, that doesn't necessarily need to be through character images, but it could be environmental, who knows? But I mean, I think do you want to add anything else? Do you want to talk through image 3, image 4, image 5 still?
Yeah,
or should we move?
I think that would be wise to do that. So image 3 is then you know, further progressing the story, make sure the image is cohesive with the previous image. And, you know, Jackie talked about that theme of justice, but it also can be geographical. You know, you're moving from a big wide shot to start with landscape or something, and then you progress your imagery and it ends with character and face. I would really encourage you to remember that people read faces as well. It's the first thing we see when we're born, you know, when we're babies, we look up to our parents' faces, and that is not hardwired, but the neural connections for us looking at people's faces is really important. We read emotion. So also think about utilising that to the best extent you can.
Just we've only got 4 minutes to go, so we need to move through this quickly and get back to the portal.
Shall we just go to the...
And I've got another
question
after we've been through here as well.
So image 4 is, so it's just a further progressive, and again, cohesion, and then we go to image 5. We go to image 5. And it's clearly showing the story's progression, the journey, the change. Make sure the image, you know, relates to the previous ones. But you're taking us on an emotional journey, as you do in your story, but it's pictorially. Okay, moving on.
Thank you. We'll go back to the portal now. So that's dealt with director's summary, director's visual images, and then producer summary. We have talked about this a little bit, and this is where you were put in whether the film had been sent in before and whether it's the second or third time, but more importantly, what changes, what progression there has been to the script. This is an opportunity for the producer to point out that they're new, but they've got this support behind them to make sure this happens, or additional finances coming to the film from somewhere other than the New Zealand Film Commission. It's where you can add all of the information that will make the reader feel that this is a team that can make this film.
Totally. And I think it's
and contingencies, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I just think it's about just making sure when you think back to the script, there'll be questions that pop into the reader's minds, the obvious ones, depending on the unique quality of the story. Just make sure you sometimes answer an obvious one. For example, if you've written a period drama, the reader will be like, oh, how do you do this on 15,000, you know? And like, you can speak to that. Maybe you can, like, depending on how, or, you know, you've got a director who's never worked with actors before. It might be like, we intend to get this support around them. So it's about really just making sure you're imagining someone who's just completely new to this story, and you're answering the first and foremost, the questions that are going to be popping up in their mind. Okay, and the last minute or two, let's answer this question. If someone has a Māori advisor for the project, and I include the person in the Tangata Whenua representation group, is it necessary to add them to the team video?
It's really up to you, but and essentially the team video is about the what we'd call the creative triangle, and that is the writer, director, producer, whoever's holding those roles. So but you know, if you decided you wanted to because it's really essential to you, then that's great. You know, that's up to you. Again, there wouldn't be any sort of like you know, I want to use the word penalty, but you know, we would go, oh, well, that's interesting. Well done you for doing that, but you don't have to. And again, because it's sort of like it's just plans and contingencies. So if you haven't plans and intentions, if you haven't already consulted, it's identifying who you might consult, and I'd make sure sometimes you have more than one consultant because there's many voices within communities. I just remind you.
Excellent. That's
cool.
Great.
Can I there's just one point I wanted to make. Well, there's a couple of things. So with the producer statement, it's the challenges. Like when we look at the script, and Miriam sort of pointed to that, it's the challenges of what you need to complete in order to accomplish this film, because sometimes there can be dogs and chickens and children and, you know, stunts and all sorts of stuff. Like, so we'd be wanting to know like how you might be intending to do that. So it's intentions, plans and contingencies. And with the director's statement, it's also about it's not only, you know, it's like, why do you want to make the film is kind of covered in the team video. So concentrate more on the how and the who, you know, how you intend to make this film, and also who you might be working with as well, to really bring that vision to the screen.
Brilliant. So we've come to an end. There's bound to be more questions between now and submission date. Miriam's there specifically to help you. Her email address is on the Script to Screen website, but it's freshshorts@script-to-screen.co.nz. And yeah, I really enjoy, you know, doing this tonight. Miriam, yeah?
Totally. It's been
Yeah, it's
lovely.
great.
Yeah, I hope we've answered everyone.
Yeah, and we hope you all, as much as you can, enjoy the process of putting in the application, because as much as I know it's a lot of work, it is a wonderful opportunity to bring your vision to life, and it's always, so we just hope you can enjoy it as much as possible.
Yeah, it's so true.
And to develop your work. It takes so much work to develop films, short or otherwise. So we really want you to, you know, just get stuck in, and we want you to make your films, whether they're funded by the Film Commission or not. Like, don't wait for permission from people to make your films. Just make your stories. You've got something to say. But just wish everybody the best of luck, and go well. And we're really excited about this round. So, you know, just as they say in the South Island, go for gold.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Thanks. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.